In this YSL short, what I'd like to do is show you a little bit about Power Automate. Specifically for this example, what we're going to do is take an Excel file like this one here that has a bunch of information about different Teams meetings, and I want to create them all. However, typing all this information in and clicking add would take a long time. So I don't feel like that. Instead, we're going to download Power Automate. First thing you want to do is log into your Office account. On the left hand side, click on these little dots, that's your app launcher. Go down to Power Automate. This is the browser based one. I'm going to be using the desktop version. Go to Create, and then in the top right hand corner, Install. And we want Power Automate for desktop. Once you've followed the install instructions, you should open up and see something less. Obviously, you won't have the pre-built flows, never mind what mine are called. Click on New Flow, and we're going to create this as a name. Create Teams Meetings. Click on Create. So our team meetings are currently listed out in the Excel workbook. So what we're going to need to do is grab all of this information from the Excel workbook. Your most common applications actually have their own set of actions. So if we look down the left hand side, you'll see we've got the option for Excel. I want to launch Excel, so that's going to be my first step. I want to launch Excel, well, not with a blank workbook, but I want to open the following document. Click on this little icon to browse and select the file. Choose Open. Make Instance Visible is whether or not Excel will actually physically appear. It's going to run faster if I can't see it, so I'm going to make it invisible. I don't plan on editing it, so I'm going to leave the read only by itself, but if I was worried about that, I could change it. Click on Save. Next thing we're going to need to do is actually pull that data from the Excel file. So over on the left hand side, we're going to do Read from Excel Workbook. I'm going to read from the only instance of Excel I have open. I want to retrieve not a single cell, but all the values from our worksheet. If you're using multiple tables, you may need to use something else, but we've just got a single table. Importantly, we also need to go into Advanced and tell it the first line in our range is column headers. So I'm going to turn that on. Choose Save. And you can see on the right hand side, we've now got this list of variables building up as we choose our different items. Now we've got the data extracted into a variable, what I'm going to do is drag in my close Excel, because it's not a good idea to have loads of different instances open and running in the background. I don't want to save anything because I don't plan on making any changes, so I'm going to choose Save. With that done, I now need to actually launch my Teams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the System option, and I'm going to choose Run Application. I need to know where the application is located. So I'm going to go down, right click on my application and choose More, Open File Location. Now that's actually the shortcut, it's not the application itself. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to Properties, and there I can see I've got Target. I'm going to copy that, switch back to my Power Automate, and paste in my path. There's actually two parts to this, the application path and the command I want to run. So the command I want to run is the process start teams exe. And I'm going to save that. If I wanted to, there's also options in there and the option for window visibility, so I could actually hide that as well. But I want to be able to see what's happening when I run my flow. The next thing I want to do is I want to iterate down this list. I want to perform different actions for each row. So to do this, I'm going to go to Loops, and I'm going to go for a for each loop. The value to iterate over, my list, is my Excel data. I'm going to select that, and you'll see it's going to create a variable called current item. Now, I don't like that name. I don't think it's too clear, especially since we're going to have two loops. That could become really confusing. So I'm going to change this to current, and I'm going to say meeting. And choose Save. Now, for each of the meetings, what I would like it to do is I would like it to come up and click on the New Meeting button. So to do this, I'm going to go for my UI automation. And in here, you'll see Click UI Element. That's going inside my loop because I want it done once for each meeting. I'm going to use the drop down on UI Element, and shucks, it turns out we haven't actually added any. So I'm going to click on Add UI Element. Once I move over my New Meeting button, you may need to click into the window, hold Control, left click to add that button. Choose Done, and I can tell it to automatically go over that button and left click. Choose Save. So that's like someone going in and clicking on that button. Next thing I want to do is, after they've clicked on that button, I want to populate my ad title. Now there's a bunch of different things in here I want to populate. And so what I'm going to do is, in Power Automate on the right hand side, I'm going to click on this little stack icon, my UI elements, and I'm going to click on Add UI Elements. Same way as I grab my button, I'm going to hover over Add Title, hold Control and click. I'm going to go over my Add Required Attendees and click. But I'm not actually going to do anything for my combo boxes. The reason being that these don't behave quite right, so we're going to have to deal with those in a different way. There's one last button I need, and that's the Send button. But you'll notice that it's a Save button until you have at least one attendee. So I'm going to pop in one of my attendees, just so I can accept them. And then I'll be able to click on this Send button as well. So remember, it's hold Control and left click. Then choose Done. Now I've got that, I can populate that title field. Back in UI, we now want form filling, and we want populate a text field. It's going to ask us, what do we want to populate? So we want the UI ad title. And then the text we want, we're going to click on this little X for our variables. And we want our current meeting. The current meeting is the entire row though, so I only want the first column. The columns are numbered 0 to, in this case, 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. All your lists start as 0. So I want column 0. And then choose Save. So this is the first row in my Excel data, and that is the first column in my Excel data. The next thing I want to do is I want to take my list here, my email list, and I want to split it up, because right now it is one continuous list of emails with little semicolons in between. So I'm going to go down to the text option, and in the text section you'll see I've got split text. So I'm going to drag that in. The text that I want to split is my, again, current meeting, but it's not everything in the current meeting, it's the last column. I've got 4 columns, which means the last item is 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. The delimiter that I want to split is not a standard delimiter, it's a custom delimiter because it was the semicolon, obviously. Yours may be a standard one, mine isn't. And then I'm going to save that. Now, when you try and enter someone, you may have seen it when I typed this one in, it doesn't automatically select the item you're interested in. It has to go away, find that email address, highlight it, and then you click on it. I can either left click or I can hit return. So for each of my delegates, I'm going to have to insert them, hit the return key, and then move on to the next one. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another loop. So I'm going to go up to my loops, add another for each loop. So now we've got 2 loops going on. The value to iterate over is my newly created split text, which has all the rows that I've split that list into. So I'm going to choose my text list, select that. And then it's going to produce one called current item again. That's confusing. So I'm going to change that from current item to current email. Save that. So for each of the emails, what would I like to do? Well, I would like to populate that. So we're back down to our UI interface. And we want to grab the populate text. I'm going to go in, populate the text field, add that inside my loop. Okay, what would you like to put in? I would like to put in to the UI field combo box add required attendees. The text that I want to put in there is my inner loop. That was my current email address. Select that. Choose save. And then it takes a second for Teams to actually load that list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it that it has to wait for a second. So the wait option gives you a whole bunch of different things. Wait until the page has changed, wait until this has happened. It could be faster. In fact, it probably would be faster if we found the one that we were interested in. Wait for text to appear, maybe. But I'm just going to stick in a standard wait command. I'm going to tell it to wait a second before continuing. Then finally, I want to send the command, hit the enter key. So I'm going to go down to mouse and keyboard. I'm going to grab send keys, add that in. And then your keys always have to have capitals. So if I want to send the enter key, I open a brace, type in the word enter with a capital E, close my brace and choose save. So that's like me physically being there and hitting the enter key. That's going to repeat for each of my email addresses, and then I can move on to the next thing I want to do. So the next thing I want to do is I want to populate my dates. Now the dates sadly just don't seem to be able to be picked up by the UI component at the time of writing this. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to position ourselves into that box by hitting tab and tab again. So I'm going to go back to my send keys option. And I'm going to say I want to send the keys. And it's going to be tab and tab. Remember that capitalization. Choose save. So we're now in the correct box. We just need to paste in the correct thing. Now this one stumped me for a little while because if I try and just paste in the date as it is now, I get an error message. The reason being is when I type in something, it actually brings up this list. And it will assume that you're using, well, sadly it won't assume that you're using American. So the only way to guarantee that this works is if we paste it in as American, as long form with the month as a text variant, or backwards, year, month, day. Now mine wasn't stored like that, so I'm going to have to change it. So to do this, I'm going to go to text, and I'm going to change my date time to text. It's going to say where is the date that you want to convert. So the date is in my current meeting. And remember, we start our columns at 0, so it's actually column 1 that has the start date in it. The style that I want is not the short date because that can confuse the system. We want the long date. Choose save. So then what I want to do is I want to take the date I've just created and paste it in. But as I said before, sadly the UI automation populate doesn't seem to work quite right. So what I'm going to do is rather sneaky. I'm going to go for my clipboard and I'm going to set the clipboard value. I'm going to set the clipboard value as my previous step, my converted date. I'm going to select that and I'll save that in there. Then I'll need to send a key of paste. So I'm going to go back to my mouse and keyboard, send keys again. The command I want to do is Control. And then to do a paired keyboard shortcut, you open a bracket. Then we want our brace again, capital V, brace, close bracket. So it's just like doing Control V on your keyboard. Choose save. So if that's worked, it should now have in it my date in here, good to go. I'm going to need to tab again twice to get into the next box, convert my date, and do the same thing. So if I switch back through, first thing I'm going to need to do is my tab again. That's nice and easy. I can just click on it, Control C, Control V, drag it down, and that will tab twice. Then I need to convert my end date. I'm going to convert that into my universal again. So Control C, Control V to copy and paste. Drag that below my new send keys. If I open that up, I don't want the first column this time. I want the second column, which is my end date. Save that. Then I'm going to do the same thing for my setting the clipboard. So I'm going to copy that and paste it in. Drag that down. And this time I want to copy my formatted date time. Now, because those are the same variable name, they will overwrite the previous version. If you don't want that to happen, just change both of them. Instead of being formatted date, we could change it to formatted date time 2. But it would work even if you just leave it. But if you're paranoid, do feel free to change it so the variable generated is actually different. Finally, with that, I'm going to send the command to paste again. And this time it will be pasting in my end date. So now I should have all of my pieces filled in. Again, you would just repeat the process if there's any others you wanted to change. And I need to click on this send button. We captured that earlier. So this time, all I need to do is grab my UI automation, click a UI element, and we saved it as our button send. Select that, choose save, and once that's all run, there's one last thing I would like to do. I would like to send a little message to myself. Maybe I've been away for a coffee, and I want that message to say, hey, by the way, this has been done. If you look down the side, you'll see you've got message boxes. These can do various things like capture inputs, which you can then use. But I'm just going to display a message. Outside of my loop, I only want to show this after that final loop has finished. My message will be flow complete message display. You have created all your meetings. And then save that. And with that, now if I run this, it should create everything. I'm going to give this a save. I'm going to make sure that I've also closed down any of my Teams meetings, because whilst this would still work, I want to show you it from scratch. So, moment of truth. Click on run. It's going to go to my Excel document. It's going to capture the table. It's going to open up a new meeting. It's going to paste in the meeting name. It's going to iterate over each of the delegates, tabbing them, hitting return, tabbing them, hitting return. Double tab to go into the text. Control C, Control V. Move on to the next one. Paste that in. And again, tabbing between each, pasting them in that changed format. Creating each of those meetings in turn. And just like that, it's done. And I can see that all my meetings have now popped up. Power Automate is really powerful, and whilst there was a few things using it with meetings that was a little bit difficult to get around, we got there in the end. I hope you've enjoyed this Wise short. If you plan on making use of this, do put it in the comments below, or if you just learned something new. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.